everybody, I'm Angela Hart, and welcome to the Heart of New York TV show. Viewers, do you realize that 1 in 68 children are diagnosed with autism? Between 500,000 and 1 million autistic children, teenagers, will become adults in the coming decade. Over 70% of these future adults will face unemployment and continue to rely on parents for housing and transportation if we don't prepare the way. And so the title of this show is Employment Opportunities for People with Autism on the Autism Spectrum, Preparing the Way. And I have the privilege of introducing a very wonderful panel, and I'm going to start with the gentleman on my left here. His name is Mr. Kang Do. Kang is currently the Executive Vice President of Corporate Strategy Group Department for Samsung. He's formerly the Chief Strategy Officer for Merck, Tyco, and Lenovo. Mr. Do holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Dartmouth College. He holds an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. Mr. Do serves on Autism Speaks Board of Directors, and he formerly spent 17 years as a senior partner at McKinsey Company, a leading management consulting firm where he helped lead the firm's healthcare, high technology, and corporate finance practices. Mr. Do founded Profectum Foundation, a nonprofit that trains clinicians and parents, and he's going to tell you more about that during the episode. But about 5 years ago, Kang Do took a year off from corporate life to create Identifor with his wife, Lori Rickles. They are parents of an autistic child. Identifor is a free online site which uses learning games to assess multiple intelligence, executive functions, and career interests. Identifor believes that every student deserves a fair chance at a fulfilling future, an education that builds upon her strengths, a job that actually interests him, and the chance to find a meaningful place in the world. At the heart of Identifor's technology is Get Abby, and we're going to learn all about Get Abby today. It's an artificial intelligence platform that uses natural speech processing and a human avatar to enable users to have a one-on-one conversation with Abby. So Abby can help people who are on the spectrum with everything from keeping schedules to setting alarms and buying groceries. Later today, Mr. Do will give us a demonstration of Abby. Thank you so much, Mr. Do, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Angela. Great to be here.
Oh, welcome. We're so excited to learn about your software and the different services you offer. And the next gentleman I'm going to introduce is Eli Gottesman. Eli is 18 years old. He was diagnosed with autism at 2.5 years old, and then he lost his interactive language. His symptoms included spinning in circles and speaking in echolalic phrasing. Eli spent his life wanting to learn about his condition and the lives of others impacted by autism. He received ABA therapy, and he graduated from Tottenville High School this past June with a 97 average. Congratulations, Eli. We're proud of you. Eli has also received scholarships from Fab for Life and SICIL, which is Staten Island Center for Independent Living. And he's won awards for musical and academic achievements from Tottenville High School. He's participated in his high school's drama club and honors concert choir. And he played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. Mr. Gottesman will be entering the College of Staten Island as a freshman in the fall. He's going to major in history, and he'll work towards a degree as a historian. Eli also performs in the Graceful Glee program, along with other teens and young adults on the spectrum at the Grace Foundation. His hobbies are singing, acting, reading history books, watching historic dramas and historic documentaries, and advocating for autism awareness. Eli's ultimate goal in life is to become employed as a qualified and capable historian in museums and historic sites, along with public speaking and theatrical endeavors. Welcome, Eli. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's really good to be here.
I can't wait to share with the audience how you came from someone who lost speech and communication to the young man that you are, that's obviously very learned and excelling in his academic pursuits. And next we have Knut Witowski. Welcome, Knut. Very good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, we're so glad you're here. Dr. Knut Witowski is head of biostatistics epidemiology and research design at the Rockefeller University. He studied at the University of
Tübingen
Tübingen,
in Germany.
Where he received his DSc in medical biometry. Please pardon my mispronunciation of these words. His dissertation is entitled Knowledge-Based Support for the Analysis of Inexact Data. That sounds very interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. He's been published in the American Journal of Public Health, and he has earned a PhD in computer science from University of Stuttgart. Pronounced it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For over 18 years, Knut Witowski has served in various distinguished positions. He's a consultant at the New York Academy of Medicine. He's an associate at HIV Center for Clinical and Behavioral Studies. He's a guest researcher for Centers for Disease Control. And in addition, he is president of ASDERA, a gene era therapy for people with autism.
Prevent children developing autism from becoming nonverbal.
Thank you. That's ADERA's vision. Interestingly, Dr. Witowski has a very personal story regarding autism, which he will share later on in the program. And this gentleman on our right is named Joseph Lento. He is the music director at Roosevelt High School of Early College Studies in Yonkers, New York. Mr. Lento is a conservatory-trained musician and professional trumpeter. He has performed with the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and Joseph holds an MS in School District Administration at Iona College. In 2014, Mr. Lento was proclaimed a National Teacher of Arts and Humanities, received mayoral proclamation by the City of Yonkers for excellence in education. He was given Teacher of the Year recognition by the Bronx County High Schools. And in 2015, he was selected as a keynote speaker at the United Nations World Youth Assembly. We're so glad to have you here. This is so impressive.
Thank you.
There's not enough time to mention all of the numerous awards that he has won for excellence. In addition, Mr. Lento believes that music unlocks the potential for academic, social, and emotional growth that every student has. So in 1987, he co-founded the instrumental performance group known as Class Act, and we're going to have you share that a little bit with the audience in just a minute. It was the first instrumental performance group in the history of New York City public schools, comprised of students with learning disabilities. Mr. Lento is a staunch advocate for people with special needs. Welcome, panel. What a great group of experts we have here. And since we just left off talking about Mr. Lento, share with us how you got involved with special needs and why it interests you as a career to teach people using music.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. When I was finishing my undergraduate degree, I was working as an assistant teacher in a Bronx middle school, and I was in a special needs classroom. I was an assistant, and I learned at that time what a wonderful opportunity I had to affect the lives of the young people in the class with my music. And the following year, when I began working at Lehman High School, I developed the first instrumental music program for students with emotional and learning disabilities. And then, as Angela pointed out, in 1986, I co-founded with Miss Kelly the first instrumental music group in the history of New York City, comprised strictly of students with emotional and learning disabilities. Some of the children also had some severe physical disabilities, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
And where did you find these students? Were they in your school, or they were from many schools?
The students were in our school. As I came to find out, there were no classes given to the students with those special needs in those areas. So I went to the principal, and we quickly put together a program for them, and I directed that program in a classroom upstairs on the second floor. And from that point, we expanded the program. We finally got a music room in the music wing of the high school, and from there it took off.
Well, this is exciting. Now, how many years ago was that?
That was 1986, so that was 30 years ago.
Wow. And where are they today? Are you in touch with some of these students?
I'm in touch with a couple of the students, and they've become very successful. One is a manager at a Con Ed facility. Another has opened up a restaurant. Another works for a computer programming software company. So I'm not in touch with all of them, of course, but through social media, I've been able to find some of them. They've found me, and it's really wonderful. And I'm convinced that the music really helped them come out of their shells, because when I first met them, they were reluctant to do any of those things, but they really took to it quickly, and I saw their development.
What a blessing. What a blessing you were to these students, and also that they're able to take these skills and go into the workplace, and that's what we're excited about. Dr. Witowski, would you like to share with the viewers if you knew or know anybody in your family or friends who have autism?
First, I would like to tell a very short story. I was at a wedding and was introduced to a couple, and the people told me that the man was just unfriendly. And I talked with him briefly, but he would never make eye contact with me. So I'm pretty sure he was not unfriendly. He had autism. So people with autism are often misinterpreted as being unfriendly. And I think that is something, when we become more aware of autism, we could actually do much better, and that will help people also in their jobs. Now back to my story. I analyzed data from the genomics of people with autism that other people had looked into, and they couldn't find anything. And we analyzed it using a new statistical approach that I had been working on for 15 years, because it became feasible only in 2001, and it took at least 10 years to get it to the point where it could be used in genomics. And when we had the results showing why children become nonverbal, often regress, and what you could do against it, I started talking more with people in the autism field, and I learned how autism is being diagnosed. And every time I heard somebody say one of the criteria, I answered, well, but that is normal. And after saying that a couple of times, I started to question my own definition of normalcy. Now, this was about more than 1 year ago.
Just a year ago, viewers, 1 year ago.
And so I got myself tested. And they said, well, I'm that far out on the spectrum, but I have language. But so I'm like, if you have seen the Imitation Games with Alan Turing, about Alan Turing, that's me.
I missed them. What are they? Tell us about these games. I haven't seen them.
Alan Turing was the guy who cracked the code of the German Enigma, the machine that the Germans used to code their messages. And by doing so, he probably shortened the Second World War by 2 years and saved 2 million people's lives.
Fascinating.
But he had severe autism, and eventually he took his own life.
Oh, very sad. Thank you for sharing your story with the viewers. I find this really amazing, that how your story came to be, that you found out by everyone else sharing what the symptoms were, that you yourself have autism, and you're so successful in your career, and this is very encouraging. Kwando, would you like to share with the viewers a little bit about your personal story, your family story?
Sure. We were living in Korea and moved back home simply because we wanted children close to grandparents. And as soon as we moved home, our son was diagnosed with autism, right around the time he was 2. So my wife and I have been working in this area, steeped in this area ever since then. He has just turned 14. So ever since he was 2, we've been involved in helping different nonprofits, starting different nonprofits, and building schools, everything to help children with autism become adolescents. And now we're very steeped in helping autistic teenagers make the transition to adulthood and help them go and pursue meaningful lives based upon their interests, abilities, and what they like to do, how they like to spend their time.
And how were you able to find out about their interests and abilities? Would you like to talk about Identifor?
Sure. I've been helping Autism Speaks, been involved with Autism Speaks since its founding. And as a result of that, I'm somewhat aware of what is available and, more importantly, what's not available. And the big missing link right now is how to help teenagers make this transition. And more importantly, how do we help parents and educators identify what a person is really good at and what they like to do? Because the reality is many of our students with ASD do not take tests very well. So when they're at school, when they are doing various things that pursue the regular curriculum, we just get what the schools are looking for and not necessarily the full range of a person's abilities. So based on work out of Harvard by Howard,
A gentleman named Howard.
yes. based on work out of Harvard, the team there believes that there are 8 different innate human abilities, right? And frankly, schools only work with 3 of them. So what we try to do is to find a different way to identify all 8 abilities. We're now at 6, right?
Wow. What are the 3 that the schools typically?
Schools typically look at math and logical skills, right? Linguistic skills.
So reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Reading, writing,
Okay.
writing,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
arithmetic. Right?
Okay.
And then there are other skills such as musical abilities, visual spatial abilities, your interpersonal skills. So think of a politician, right, who has great interpersonal skills.
Okay.
Many of these abilities go unmet, right? Another thing is bodily kinesthetic abilities. So now during the Olympics, great professional
yes.
athletes, many of these
Yes.
things do not get assessed. So what we created was a series of games. Games, because I know these individuals will play games for as long as you let them.
You like
right?
them too, right?
You like games,
You're
right?
a young man.
Right?
Yeah.
You like playing games. So we created games that behind the scenes collect all kinds of information that then provides parents insights into the person's intelligences. So is this person a visual learner? Is this person great at music skills? Is this person a mathematical genius? Right? Depending on what that person is, that leads to very different educational and vocational abilities. Right? And all you do is you play, the person plays the games, the parents get a report, a dashboard that gives you insight into what a person is really interested in doing.
This is wonderful. How many games or how many hours of interaction does the student have to do before they're assessed?
Well, the more data, of course, the more you play, the better the insight. So realistically, we have 40 games or so through our site. If you play about 20 of the games several times, that then starts to give you good insights into the abilities and interests, right? And you can play the game on our website. You can download it onto your phone, your tablets.
Would you share their website address?
Okay. The website, the URL is www.identifor.com.
Identifor.
Identifor.com.
And where did you get the name?
It stands for Identifying Abilities for the Pursuit of Meaningful Lives.
Excellent. And does it cost money for the parents to, or whomever to go there?
It is completely free for parents, for individuals, for schools, for professionals who are working with people on the spectrum.
And who designed this?
Well, we have worked with a team of award-winning psychologists and some leading experts in artificial intelligence and computer science out of Carnegie Mellon. And we have a team of developers out of Hong Kong and India who've been working on this thing now for about 3 years.
Wow. I bet you have a plan in place or a goal to have a team that will take this information and then guide the users into a certain vocation, I would imagine. That would be the logical next step, correct?
What we try to do is we try to help parents better guide their own children. So by using this tool at our website, once we identify what a person is good at and what he or she is interested in, we also provide information that's available from the Department of Labor that says a person with this particular profile tends to do really well in these kinds of jobs.
As an example.
Right? So somebody who has great visual spatial skills can go and perform a role that needs to look at differences. So I'll give you a very real example
Yes.
of what goes on in Israel.
Yes.
Right? The Israeli military seeks out adults with autism and train them to read aerial reconnaissance maps so that you
Wow.
can see what is going on. Right? You
Wow.
can have your own points of view on that, but that is a very real, highly valued job in Israel. In the United States, the same thing applies. There is a major shortage of air traffic controllers.
Yes.
Right? Air traffic
Yes.
controllers. And the exact same skills are needed, right? You need somebody who has great attention, great visual spatial abilities, great ability to multitask and look at things, right? And if you find such a person, you definitely want that person to be qualified to do this job.
I would want that kind of a person in the air traffic control room. let's talk more about the job life in a moment, but I'd like to just ask Eli a question. Eli, would
Yes.
you like to share with the viewers in that camera there a little bit about your work at the nursing homes that you've done, your performances?
Okay, so all the times I've gone to the nursing homes were with Graceful Glee and with my choir at Tottenville High School. And, we would help cheer up the people, the residents there, for the holidays, during the spring. And I got to work on both ends, meaning going with people with autism and going with people who don't have autism. And what I've seen is, through our musical talents, we've,
You brought joy, I
Yeah,
bet.
we brought joy, we brought happiness to, people who are sad or felt upset about something. And actually, there's a very touching story attached to all this. When I went with my school choir, a couple of friends of mine, their grandfather was at Seaview, at the nursing home. And we would go every year to cheer him on. We would, cheer him up, sing for him. He would always get up and say, "That's the way to do it." And, and he was a really nice man. Unfortunately, he passed away. So, I was happy that I was able to help him and help my friends who are fraternal twins. So it was their grandfather. And, but when I went with people with Graceful Glee, it teaches a lot about empathy. It teaches us a lot about respecting other people, bringing happiness to other people, not just to ourselves. And these are things that we use in daily life, not just for something as centered as this. These are skills we take into the world.
Wow. Wow. Eli, I'm so impressed. It's almost hard to imagine that you were ever a person who was without speech and had the what do you call that word?
Echolalia.
And what does that mean?
It's a repetitive language pattern where you get to repeat things from anywhere. It doesn't matter what it is. And to this day, I'm still echolalic, but I keep it to an all-time low, like in my private time, like when no one else is around. And I use it as a talent for like memorizing scripts and things like that. But back then, it was just that speech pattern. It wasn't, interactive. So if someone was asking me a question, I would just repeat something from a movie.
Oh, that had nothing to do with what they asked you.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember that?
Yes.
You do? This is fascinating.
All the years that I've had autism, I still remember to this day just being echolalic.
You do?
Yeah.
Viewers, I just want to encourage you because I'm sitting next to a gentleman, as I said, that's a very successful scientist, and he has only recently found out that he's on the spectrum. And this young man, Eli, who is describing losing speech and communication ability for a period of his life, and then through therapy and other means, look at this fine young man. And we have so much that people on the spectrum can offer our society. So the purpose of this show and other shows that we're going to do is to introduce more people like this to our communities, and especially to prospective employers, because we need to start preparing the way for people to have gainful employment in technology and other fields, the music field, the science field, even in the historian, being in the arts and culture. So we need to start talking about some of these things. And I have a couple of couple of points that have come to my mind, and I don't know if you've all thought about it. Some employers hire people with Down syndrome, and they're easily identifiable because of the way they look. Mm-hmm. There was a story in the news recently where I think it was a rap singer or somebody had misunderstood someone with autism, right? Do you remember the story?
Yeah, I read on Facebook, they posted the article. And the story was, I'm not sure, I don't remember what his name was, but it was somewhere, I forgot where it was, but there was a 19-year-old employee with autism. And the rapper was trying to talk to him, but he didn't make contact because he didn't know what to do. So then he said on the video, he thought that he was like under
drugs,
under the influence of drugs or other substances, but that's not true. That's just the closed-minded way of thinking about it. If he was just not making eye contact or not wanting to talk to you, it doesn't mean that.
Exactly.
It never really means that. It's autism.
It's a condition, right?
Exactly.
And so I think this is an important point, that we can start thinking about educating employers and how they might educate their employees and people in our communities to start understanding this idea. Do you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
This is a very difficult challenge.
Yeah.
And it's being spearheaded by a number of really leading edge companies out there who have gone out of their way to hire a good number of adults with autism. Right? And the way to make it work is not just to hire 1 or 2 or 3 individuals, right? But to essentially, how do you get an entire organization prepared to bring in many, many of these individuals? So it starts with, one, identifying the right individuals you can hire, but at the same time, there's a lot of training that has to be put in for the employees, the other employees of the company.
Yes.
So companies like Walgreens and other great companies out there have made great strides in just educating their workforce. That this is just diversity. It's just a different form of diversity.
Yes.
We just need to be open to it. We need to work with these individuals and just be aware. And I think often it starts with just building awareness, right? That different people have different learning styles, different interaction styles.
Yes.
And once people become aware, there aren't that many jerks out there, typically,
no,
right?
no.
The people, once they become aware,
Yeah.
they just understand, and then you
Yeah.
start having that interaction.
Right. I mean, I talk to people about autism every single day. Like, I first found out about my autism when I was 9 years old, and my mother put on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and they did a segment about children, siblings, I think, with autism, and how frustrated the mother was of these siblings, and it made me start to learn about my condition, and then taking that later in life to understanding other people's lives affected by autism, on all the symptoms they have, the challenges they have, and then that led up to me advocating for it and talking to people everywhere I go. I say, I have autism, it's real, there's no denying it, we just need to become more aware of it. Instead of thinking like that rapper, we need to think about
Perhaps this
logically,
is right.
If these people with autism, we don't feel, not to feel sorry for them, but to encourage them, to encourage their interests and their passions and their drive in life. Because if we don't do that, it's just like it won't work.
Exactly.
It won't work that way.
And not only that, we're going to lose a wonderful population of people that can contribute to society.
And very recently at Autism Speaks, we launched a new service and a new website that is aimed at helping companies identify and hire adults with autism.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. I'm glad to hear this.
On the other hand,
Yeah.
it also helps individuals with autism find companies and jobs that
Next match, right?
And part of what we've done with this website is that it's not, think of it as monster.com, but it goes beyond that. It gives you a sense of videos, for example, the supervisor of the person that will be in that role.
Yes.
Then it describes
Right.
what the job really is like, and then it gives some videos to kind of give you a sense of what you would really be doing if you're in this job.
So this is on autismspeaks.com. They have these videos?
You can go to autismspeaks.org, and you can search for it. The exact website escapes me right now, but there's a service now that is trying to help.
Oh, this is terrific. What about, can we get some government subsidies or tax benefits for hiring people with special needs? Is that already something that's in place?
There's not
For the
enough of
companies,
that.
I mean?
There's not enough of that. There are a few, quote-unquote, pilot programs that are being ran in different cities around the country, right? But there's just, frankly, there's just
Not enough yet.
Much more needs to be done.
Frankly, I think that is not necessarily the best approach, and it's not necessary. The German software company, at least not in all cases, the German software company SAP, has created a program where they specifically hire people with autism to do testing of software. We heard that before. You said a flight controller. I'm not sure if I would see multitasking as one of the key things in people with autism. One of the characteristics in autism of the diagnosis is restricted interest. And multitasking is almost the opposite. But there are many areas where people with autism can excel and be better than anybody else. So a government program would leave the impression that they are not 100%.
That's
And
interesting.
I think it may be better to train people to accept people with autism and look for what they actually can do good.
The thing
and-
is, though, we want to give incentives because this is new to employers. You know,
And
we
one
wanna-
of the things is, and I'm going back to the movie again because it's so typical. Alan Turing wants to get hired, and he starts a fight with the person hiring him during the interview.
You know,
So it's not always as extreme. But what I have learned recently after becoming more aware is, when I'm talking with people and I'm touching an area where they feel uncomfortable, I don't get it. These are the social contacts that people like me don't get.
Now, would
And then-
ABS help this? Would ABS, is it called ABS training? ABA means
ABA,
applied.
behavioral analysis.
Would that help, that kind of,
It would
Training
help
help? Yeah.
if you have a diagnosis.
right, well, now that
I-
you have it, now
yeah.
that you've self-diagnosed.
But change 60 years of life. Not everybody with autism has a diagnosis.
Right.
that's right.
Often, people like the person I was talking with at the wedding are just characterized as being unfriendly or being non-responsive. And there's something else that I learned from a neighbor who was was in a wheelchair in Germany. She used to say, what you learn from people with disabilities helps everybody.
Isn't that true?
If you make a building accessible, it also helps people who have their luggage and get it into the
As an
building.
example.
And here it is, there is some people don't say what they want. They try to influence people and get it across without saying.
Why are you saying that?
Because that doesn't work with people who
Oh,
have
okay, that's what
autism.
they're not subtle, is what you're saying. They don't understand subtleties.
They don't
Is that what you're saying?
understand, they can't read between the lines.
Yeah.
But if you just tell them what it is, they can. There's no problem.
And these are
And
part of
I
the-
think that would help society overall if we had a bit more openness and clarity in our communication rather than being always politically correct and never saying too much. I think the more direct way could help other people as well.
Thank you, thank you. Did you want to share
Yeah,
something before I go to Dr. Khan?
Yes,
I mean, to Mr. Khan.
I would. I've heard many wonderful points here, and I've been teaching for 33 years. And, you know, we talk about identifying what employers might need. And it's, of course, about identification, but it's really about self-actualization. And what we do is we teach what we think young people should know of all abilities, as opposed to what they can learn. And inherent in teaching vocal or instrumental music exists all those different modalities. There's the tactile, there's the spatial, there's the decoding of things, there's learning how to get along with people. There are the people can bring to the table skills they didn't realize they had just by putting an instrument in their hand. And it's not about the level of excellence they achieve, it's about the experience that doing those things brings out in a person. And that's what we should do as a society. We should give young people the opportunity to self-actualize, so when they go into the workforce, they'll bring out those skills that others are looking for, whether it be a college, whether it be an employment opportunity. And that's really what I'm focusing on. And I have seen this for 33 years, and we don't do enough of it. We barely do the minimum.
Interesting.
You know, I cannot agree more, right? What we all need to do is to help these individuals self-actualize what they are able to do, what they are interested in. There are going to be some who have great mathematical, logical skills with focus and so forth, who will then go to SAP or other software company and do great things. But there are others who don't have that profile, right? And so what we need to do is to prepare the schools and help the parents of the 100% of the spectrum, right? So that how do we help them identify what you are good
Right.
at,
Right.
and what you're good at, and then make the most of it. So what we at Identifor believes in is you have to focus on the individual, help identify what that person is really strong at, what's really good at, really interested in, and point and build upon that, point it in that particular direction.
May I add just one other point? And what Mr. Doe just said is absolutely correct. The thing that has really impressed me is when I see students of varying abilities helping each other without me saying a word. And it's amazing how they bring out the best in each other. So you have that awareness and sensitivity all built in there, and I just don't understand why we're not doing the things that are concrete, proven, and will help students of all abilities, help our society, and that's what we need to focus on. So it's really so nice to hear all of these wonderful ideas, and I think we're all on the same page here. And with my area of expertise, I just know we need much, much more of it.
Thank you. Thank you. All very good comments. In a moment, I'm going to ask Mr. Doe to demonstrate one of the software programs. But first, I wanted to just ask a little bit about the medical side of this, especially address this to you, and you probably, Mr. Doe, know as well. You know, a lot of people have been talking about that they think that the rise in autism has come from immunizations. Do you have any updates on that?
There is absolutely no medical basis.
Zero.
Zero.
So coincidentally, though, they said that in the 80s, I think it was, is when they started putting more antibodies into the injections, right? The immunizations, and at that time, more autism started getting diagnosed. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
It's a very complicated question.
Now,
right?
they changed the vaccines back, and what is happening to autism? It's on the rise.
That's right.
Is there enough time span to judge that?
You
by?
would see that immediately.
Immediately.
You
If
would.
that were true, you would see that immediately, and it
Okay.
must be something else.
Okay. And my second question is, and pardon me if it's really going to sound silly, can anything external change one's genes?
No.
It's impossible. Okay.
We have now a technique, CRISPR-Cas, that somewhere in the very far future might be able to do that. So, but right now, no.
And are we sure that it is genetic? Or we're still testing?
When diseases run in families, it's genetic.
But autism doesn't necessarily run in families, right?
It does.
It
There's a
does?
very strong genetic component. Siblings of people with autism have a very high chance. Children of people with autism also have a high chance of becoming autistic. It runs in families. It runs in families. And interestingly, it runs in family together with two other diseases. One is epilepsies, and the other is migraines.
Migraines.
I mean, I've never had epilepsy ever. It was just, for me, it was just autism. But I've met people with autism who, you know, struggle with like epilepsy. And there was a friend of mine from school who graduated. She had epilepsy. She didn't have autism, but she had epilepsy, and she would describe to me, you know, how difficult it was. This, seizures. You know, all the challenges that confront her. But she keeps like moving on. But I mean, with me, I've never had any of those problems. Mine it developed. I was, up until I was 2.5, I was like fine. I was able to count forwards and backwards and do the alphabet and things like that. But then along the way, the language started to like slip away. It started to just.
And we don't know
yeah.
why this happens. Is that right?
Right,
This is
it
what's
just-
so frustrating to parents because it's a shock, right? All of a sudden.
I was told by my parents that my face started to look different too. Like there was something weird about how the appearance of my face looked. It's not because of anything else. It was just, I don't know, like something happened developmentally with the autism, and then it became official when I was 2.5, and then from then on, it was just
It's been a
difficult.
journey, but
Yeah.
look how
Right.
you've come through.
And around that time before too, I was starting to develop all the stems and like the spinning in circles. And
Tell the viewers, because maybe, don't
Okay.
forget, there's some viewers watching this who have a
Right.
child who's maybe about 2.5 when this usually gets
Right.
diagnosed, and they've just been given this diagnosis, and they're going to see symptoms that you're going to describe, and here they're going to think what's going to happen in the future, and you
Yeah.
can be such an encouragement to them.
Right.
Take about just a minute or so, because then we need to go to Kang's demonstration.
Right, so basically, a stim for someone with autism, it's comforting. It's an impulse that makes people with autism feel comfortable. For example, if someone were to tap on this desk like this, just over and over and over and over again, because something about the sound is so relieving to them, that's a stim. Whereas most people would think, you know, like, what is he doing? What is she doing? Because to a regular person, this is not, you know,
Relaxing.
right. They don't really absorb it in that way. For people with autism, they know that if they're doing this, for them it's comforting. Or if someone's spinning in a circle, that's comforting to them. And you know, some
Do you
people
remember doing that, or were you too young to remember that?
Oh no, I remember.
You
To this
do?
day, I remember every stim I've done in the book. I remember every stim. I was tapping on walls.
And you were spinning in circles
and flapping my hands. and
until you were
rocking
how
back and
old? About, would you say?
I think like all the stems stopped around maybe 6 years old.
Through
7.
ABS?
Well, I mean, I don't really remember through the
But it
ABA,
helped, the ABA, I'm
but
sorry.
gradually they went away. Like I don't do any of these stems anymore. But you know, my advice is, you know, don't just ultimately assume that it's just abnormality. That's not what a stim is. It's a little comfort zone. It's something that is part of the comfort zone, tapping and spinning and whatever they do, because they can range from anywhere.
Okay.
So I would like to say something to that.
Yeah.
The genetics results that we have suggest that this overexcitability that where you try to distract yourself with a stim.
Yeah.
When that happens early on in the second year of life, that can be the trigger that triggers something as bad as migraines that then leads to regression and lack of language. You were lucky. You learned language first until
Right.
the second year of life. And that means you will never forget it because it's
Implanted.
the neurons
Right.
are in your
Right.
brain.
Yeah.
If children don't speak during the second year of life,
Yeah.
they run the risk that their neurons for language get permanently removed.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm going to hope that's not, I believe in faith. I have strong faith, and I believe that with God, everything is possible. And
Everything
I don't
is
want to say they'll
possible,
never speak.
but
I believe in hope.
it is important
I'm sorry.
to start the diagnostic
Yes, that's
process
your whole point.
extremely early, and that means to take the questionnaire at the 9-month well child visit
Thank you.
seriously and discuss with your pediatrician what can be done, and if our result points in the right direction, then in the future, we may actually help these children avoiding the migraine, avoiding the regression,
Great.
so that
Okay.
all of them will have language and can then benefit from programs where they become employed and contribute to society
Early
rather than
detection.
becoming people who need assisted living for the rest of their life.
Okay, so we just have about 15 minutes left. I think on this topic, if Mr. Doe and Mr. Lento have a quick second, they want to share something, and then we're going to go on to the demonstration. Was there anything you wanted to add to this conversation
It's
briefly?
one from a medical standpoint, really we do not know what causes autism at this point in time. So I think it's everyone is guessing and hypothesizing.
Yep.
There is a genetic component to this, but there are absolutely non-genetic components to this as well. We know that because identical twins do end up both twins having autism.
Oh.
Right?
Sometimes.
Right. 70% of autistic twins do end up having autism, but 30% do not.
Wow.
Which then basically says that there has to be a non-genetic factor.
Of course, yeah.
And genetics do not change in one generation like we have seen here. In one generation, we've seen this dramatic increase in autism. Genetics doesn't change that quickly.
Okay.
But stress does. and therefore the need for
That's right.
STIMs.
So what my guess is that 20 years from now, we will look back and with better understanding of this disease and say there are different autisms, and there are certain autisms that are driven by certain genetic factors. There are
Really?
other autisms that were driven by environmental factors, other things. Time will tell.
Fascinating, fascinating. And then I'm going to go to you, Mr. Lento.
Yes, in the schools, we receive something called an IEP, an Individual Education Plan for students with special needs. And it's just a very broad-based, student will achieve this, student will learn that, goal objective. There's really nothing medical other than if the child has a medical condition. There's no real science in there. But Angela, it goes back to what you said. You have hope, and I have strong hope and faith in when they come into my classroom, I don't ask any questions other than let the power of the music and what we're going to do with that music bring out the best in the students. And because I'm not a scientist, but I know the power it has, and that's why I advocate for it all the time, because it does help develop all the students, and I want to see more of it.
Beautiful, beautiful. I was just wondering if they've looked at the baby formula, if there were any changes in the 80s when this started becoming more prevalent, because could it be possible that what else happened in the 80s that in our society and in our culture? The microwaves, because for the 30% that are not genetic, or have they considered studying those?
There are many, many of these kinds of studies. I think time will tell, but there has been nothing that directly links to anything.
Including the baby formula,
Yes,
that they
including the baby
didn't make a
formula.
change back then in the formula? Okay, well, that's good.
The only factor that I could think of, but that is only a small part, would be TV. 50 years ago, children would never see TV. Today, children grow up often in a room where TV is running
Wow.
all day long, and every couple of minutes there is a commercial and shouting at the child.
Fascinating.
It's only, I don't think this is the whole story. It's a small, but it could be a small part, showing that society is getting more stressful, even for children.
So
and
the stress
that
factor.
increase in stress is something that I could see as something contributing to the increase in autism.
Thank
I'm
you.
skeptical
Interesting.
about that because there are places around the world where TV is not part of the culture at all, and yet
Third
the
world countries.
increase
Okay.
of autism is still seen.
Interesting, lots of interesting perspectives here. I think we're going to have to do a second show. This has been fascinating. However, we have about 10 minutes left, and Mr. Doe has been kind enough to bring his iPhone to give us a brief demonstration, and I'm particularly interested in how Eli reacts to this. Have you heard about Abby yet?
Up until today, no.
Okay, and so we're going to hear from Mr. Doe, explain a little bit about the program and actually use it, and then hear Eli's reaction to it.
But this right now is a prototype, but it will be available from our website, the app stores, and so forth in September. Right. So this is something that's designed to help adults throughout the day. So let me introduce you to Abby. Abby is an artificial intelligence-driven avatar that lives on your smartphone. She's designed to help you with anything that you need over the course of the day that we train her to do, such as, Abby, I have to be at work at 8 tomorrow. Can you set an alarm for 6 o'clock?
Your alarm has been set for 6 o'clock a.m. Do you want a reminder phone call as well?
Yes, could you call me 15 minutes later?
Okay, I'll call you at 6:15 a.m. I see that pickup milk is still on your to-do list. Did you stop at the grocery store on your way home today?
No, Abby, I forgot to stop at the grocery store.
Would you like me to remind you when you get off the bus during your walk home today?
Yes, please, but how do you know when I get off the bus?
You gave me access to your phone's location information when we started, so I can see where you are. I'll call you when I see you arrive at your usual bus stop. Is there anything else you need from the grocery store?
Could you please add cereal and orange juice?
You got it. Your grocery list has been updated.
Right. So you just talk to Abby, and she will help you, and she's going to come out in this
Right.
exact format. And basically, it's designed for an adult going to school or an adult on a job. So you can enter in your school information.
Like I would put in like College of Staten Island.
College of Staten Island. Here, I'm helping a student at Pace University. The student is taking biology, world literature, French, chemistry, and history of films, right? And for each one of these courses, you put in when the course takes place, when your exams are, when your labs, and everything else that you need to do, and she will remind you the way that you want to be reminded. She can call you, she'll text you, she'll pop up and start talking to you.
Or maybe like a ringtone that's like a...
It could be a ringtone, but literally Abby can pick up,
Oh,
pop
wow.
up, or will call you, right? And in addition to that, she'll start asking you as it approaches your exam time, have you started studying for your exam? It also helps with daily living skills such as reminding you to take out the trash, do the laundry, it's 11 o'clock, it's time to go to bed. So anything over the course of a day, Abby is designed to help.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's good like for reminders. Like you can, like you don't need to use like a catalog anymore, like a paper catalog. You can just use this, and it'll like do like automatically. It'll go, okay, you have to do this at this time and this at
Absolutely.
that. I think
Can you do the thing about the doctor with the diabetes and then or the sugar's low? You did some kind of demonstration I saw once.
Sure.
Watch this for people with medical issues. It's fascinating.
It's designed, like in there, it's designed to help you, remind you to take your medication. It's also designed to help with navigation, getting you from point A to point B, right? So
Hi, I'm Abby.
we
your
designed a
health coach.
version of this
It's
for
nice to meet
healthcare.
you. I'm here to help
Right.
you take control of your health and live well by providing you with a wealth
Yeah,
of
but Abby, can I skip my workout today? I'm feeling really good.
Well, of course, it's your choice, but I'll tell you what I know. This week, you've logged 130 minutes of exercise time, burning an estimated 1,000 calories. This is 73% of your weekly goal. So, you can skip today, but you'll need to squeeze in another exercise session on Sunday if you want to reach your goal. You are doing really well with your weight loss, ahead of pace by 5%. Wouldn't it be great to beat your goal?
You're right, Abby. Can you help me with a 2-mile run?
Okay, great choice. You won't regret it. I'm pulling up 2 route choices on the map now.
Right. And Abby, I see you sent me a message. Could you check my messages?
Did you check your weight on the scale this morning?
She normally would get all of this automatically, but for some reason I must have been traveling or something. She didn't get it this morning. Yes, I checked my weight. I weighed 150 pounds.
Okay. My records indicate that you have not missed your exercise program this week, but have gained 4 pounds in the last 3 days. Are you taking your Lasix every morning before
Right.
breakfast?
So this is for someone with
is so
congestive
amazing.
heart failure, right?
This
So
is
this
amazing.
it's good for reminders. It's
It's
like there are times like I forget. Oh, like I have to take out the trash, and
Right.
I get relaxed. I'm like, oh my, like oh, I forgot, and I'm like running over the house. I'm like, okay, I have to get this done. I'm like, okay, now it's done.
Yeah, it's actually more it can be much more proactive than that. She
Right.
More
learns-
proactive than that?
Yes, absolutely. So she learns, for example, you normally leave at 7:30 in the morning to go to work or to school. But today, if it's 7:45 and you're still home, she knows you're home because she has your GPS coordinates.
Oh my God.
Right? If she knows that you're late, she would then call you, pop up, and she will ask you, why are you still home? Right? It could be, well, you're overslept, you are late, so this gets you into gear, or you're just home because there's no school today.
Right.
But at least there's an interaction, right? And we've spent a year working with a number of different organizations around the country that works with adults with autism to try to understand what these individuals face, the challenges they face, the difficulties they have. And so we've trained Abby to try to help with as many of that as we can. Of course, she doesn't know everything yet, but she's constantly learning. So when you ask a question that she doesn't have an answer for, we'll know about it, we track everything, right? And then we'll teach her, we'll train her to answer it.
You track everything at the home base about the individual.
That's right. It's all about the
it does,
individuals.
also, I think you said it calls the doctor if you haven't, it makes your appointment or lets you know, something like
Yes.
that?
So in this particular case, if you have heart failure, you've been active, you're taking your medication, and you're gaining weight, it means there's fluid buildup. She's been trained in this particular instance for this one organization to put you in contact with the doctor, to call the doctor's office, to essentially start so this is all designed to prevent a visit to an emergency room.
So she would tell you your blood sugar is a little too high or something like that.
Absolutely, right? So we are developing a different version of this app to help individuals, to help insurance companies, hospitals, and so forth manage chronic diseases. So things like diabetes, asthma, heart failure, so forth.
What do you mean? How would it work with the insurance company, as an example?
So through a company called TII, we're focusing on developing, so an organization such as UPMC, Mayo Clinic, West Virginia University, so forth, they would then provide this tool to someone who has diabetes. That's right. And what they're trying to do is to prevent complications associated with diabetes. So this app would be residing on that person's phone. If blood sugar gets too high, wait.
How will the app know that the blood sugar is too high?
Through Bluetooth-enabled glucose monitors. Right?
Wow.
So she can access anything through Bluetooth, the same way that she knows you're gaining weight because of Bluetooth scales, through activity bands, and so forth.
This is fascinating. This is fascinating. What do you think?
It's absolutely amazing. It's amazing.
Do you see any application, use of this in the education field?
Sure. I mean, absolutely can remind students what they need to do on their homework assignments, what they need to study, what time the class periods might be. It's endless. This is amazing, amazing.
So we have a number of universities that will be rolling this thing out to their students with special needs this coming fall. I'm just embarrassed to say that we're about a month behind schedule.
Oh, big deal.
But right
one
now,
month.
but
That's
right
like
now,
terrific.
we're rushing to make sure that we're done by September so that it could start of the school semester.
Now, do they download this to their cell phones, or do they have to buy the whole hardware? How does it work?
Just download it to your cell phone, download it to your iPhone, download it to your Android phone. You just go to the App Store and search for Identifor, and it will come up.
And how much does it cost to?
It is absolutely free.
What?
Our purpose.
Wait a minute! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So my wife and I, long ago.
I'm touched. I'm really touched. I thought that was a for-profit organization. I'm just so touched that you don't even charge people for this.
Through a nonprofit, the companion nonprofit, we will make this thing freely available to anyone who has a special need, right? Or anyone who finds, in the future, if we decide to charge for it, anyone who has difficulty paying for the subscription fee, we will make it freely available.
Oh, okay. And so we have 1 minute left. So quick couple of seconds.
Well, also why that's going to be invaluable, because oftentimes students with special needs often have medical conditions as well. So it's going to be invaluable.
Okay, audience, viewers, thank you so much for watching. Panel members, we appreciate you coming on. Kwong, can you please say the website again for?
This is www.identifor.com.
That's a great program, and really I'm sure you've all been very inspired by the group here. Thanks for watching, and we hope that you'll tune in again. Goodbye now.